You don't notice it right away.
It starts quietly. An extra task, a silent favor, a phone call you didn't have time for but took anyway. You tell yourself, it's no big deal. And it isn't, at least not on its own. But then it happens again. And again. A text in the middle of your only free hour. A friend venting while you're barely holding it together yourself. A message from work on your day off. A family member crossing a line you never had the courage to draw. Suddenly, your days feel heavier. Your thoughts get slower. You're tired, but not from doing too much, just from doing everything for everyone but yourself.
That's what boundary problems feel like. They don't scream. They whisper. They leak your energy in invisible drops. And the most dangerous part is, it feels normal.
You've been trained, gently, sometimes brutally, to believe that giving more means being more valuable. That your worth is directly tied to your usefulness. That saying yes makes you a good person and saying no means you're cold, selfish, or weak.
This is how we learn to abandon ourselves. We don't notice how much we give away. Not until something breaks. And usually it's not something that's you. Burnout doesn't just happen to people who do a lot. It happens to people who can't stop.
People who've been running on an empty tank for months or years, giving from reserves they never had, hoping the world will notice how tired they are and give them permission to rest.
But the world doesn't give that permission. It only takes what you allow.
It doesn't reward you for running on fumes.
It asks why you can't go faster. This isn't your fault. You were taught to please, to help, to serve.
You were taught that your needs could wait, that they were less urgent than someone else's crisis, that speaking up was dangerous, that disappointing others meant you were bad, broken, unworthy of love.
And you believed it because we all do at some point, especially when we're young. Especially when we were praised for being easy, quiet, good, helpful. But here's the truth no one told you.
Every time you abandon yourself to keep the peace, you teach your body that peace equals self-erasure.
And over time, your body learns. It starts to resist joy. It panics when you have free time. It tenses up when someone needs something. It doesn't trust that you will protect it because you haven't been. This isn't a character flaw. It's a wound. And boundaries are how you heal it. But first, you need to see the leaks.
The tiny, constant, quiet ways your energy gets drained each day. Through guilt, people-pleasing, over-explaining, tolerating, apologizing for your existence.
These aren't personality traits. They're survival patterns. But surviving is not the same as living. Boundaries don't make you mean. They make you real. They give you shape. They say, this is where I begin and end.
Without them, everything bleeds into everything, and you forget what you even like, what you want, who you are.
The first step isn't to change your whole life. It's to notice, where do you feel small after saying yes? Where do you feel bitter after helping? Where do you shrink when you speak? These are not flaws. They're clues. And if you're starting to notice them, you're already waking up. You're not broken. You're exhausted. And that exhaustion is not a weakness. It's wisdom. It's your body's way of saying, I'm ready to stop leaking. I'm ready to come home. Most people don't struggle with boundaries because they're weak. They struggle because boundaries feel unsafe.
Logically, you know it's okay to say no. You've read the advice, seen the quotes, maybe even repeated them to friends.
But when it's your turn to speak up, something strange happens.
Your chest tightens. Your stomach turns. You freeze.
The words feel stuck, like they'll come out all wrong or not at all. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not bad at communication.
You're protecting yourself from an invisible threat, one that might have been real once.
You see, many of us learned early that setting boundaries caused pain. When you said no, someone got angry. When you said how you felt, someone laughed or yelled or left.
When you expressed a need, you were called difficult, dramatic, selfish, or sensitive.
So your nervous system did what it had to do. It learned to avoid risk. It learned that being liked was safer than being honest. That being needed was better than being alone. That disappearing was easier than disappointing someone. And those lessons stuck.
Even now, as an adult, with more power and more choice, your body still reacts like you're 6 years old. facing the same threats.
Because for your nervous system, there is no past. There is only now. And now feels scary. So when someone asks for something you don't want to give, you feel guilty for even thinking about saying no. When someone pushes past your limit, you freeze instead of speaking up.
When you imagine telling someone how they hurt you, you imagine the worst-case scenario and decide it's not worth the risk.
This isn't weakness. It's trauma logic.
It's your brain saying, the last time I tried to protect myself, it went badly. So maybe it's safer to stay quiet. Maybe it's safer to disappear again.
But silence comes with a cost. You start to feel resentful, then exhausted, then numb.
Eventually, you don't just lose the ability to say no. You lose the desire to say yes. Everything starts to feel like a burden, even things you once loved.
Because when your life is shaped by what other people expect from you, it stops feeling like yours. That's the hidden danger of boundarylessness. It doesn't just steal your time. It steals your sense of self. And that's why boundaries feel so scary. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something unfamiliar. And unfamiliar can feel like unsafe, even when it's exactly what you need. But growth always feels like fear at first. Your brain doesn't recognize safety in things it's never known. So the first time you set a boundary, your hands might shake. Your voice might tremble. Your whole body might scream, "This is dangerous. Go back." But it's not dangerous. It's different. It's powerful. It's healing. The people who love you, really love you, will adjust. The ones who don't, they never respected your yes to begin with. They only respected your silence. And silence is not a foundation for a good life. You don't owe your comfort to anyone. You don't need to earn rest. You don't have to be everyone's emergency contact, therapist, or backup plan. You're allowed to be your own priority, even if that makes someone uncomfortable. Especially if it makes someone uncomfortable. Because discomfort is where change begins. And boundaries, they're not walls. They're doors. They let the right people in and keep the chaos out. You are not too much. You're not selfish. You're not broken. You're learning how to take up space again. And that's the bravest thing you can do. You don't need a long speech to say no. You don't need an excuse, or a dramatic backstory, or a list of all the reasons why it's just not possible right now. You are allowed to say no simply because you want to. That's enough. You are enough.
But if you spent your life trying to be nice, saying no can feel like a crime,
like you're letting someone down, like you're rejecting them, like you're a bad friend, a bad kid, a bad person. That's the emotional weight behind every polite, people-pleasing yes.
A silent belief that love is conditional and that boundaries will make people leave.
So you say yes when you're tired. You say yes when you're overwhelmed. You say yes when every cell in your body is begging you not to. And what's worse, people start to expect it.
They don't ask. They assume. They treat your kindness like a guarantee. And when you finally gather the courage to say no, they get offended.
They say, "You've changed. You're being selfish." What happened to you? What happened is, you finally stopped apologizing for having needs. You stopped agreeing to things that hurt you. You stopped mistaking being liked for being loved. And that's the real art of saying no. It's not just about the words. It's about unlearning the belief that you must make yourself small to be safe. Because real safety doesn't come from always saying yes. It comes from knowing that you're allowed to have limits. It comes from knowing that your worth isn't measured by your availability. So how do you say no? Clearly, kindly, without shame. Try this. "Thanks for thinking of me, but I can't. I don't have space for that right now. That's not something I'm comfortable with. I need to say no this time." And maybe the hardest one, no. Full stop. No smiley face. No nervous laughter. No paragraph explaining your entire week. Just the truth. You don't owe anyone more than that. Will people get upset? Sometimes. Will they accuse you of being cold, distant, difficult? Possibly. But that's not about you.
That's about the version of you they created in their head. The version who never says no, who never pushes back, who never prioritizes herself.
When you break that illusion, it will shake them. And it should.
Because people who truly care about you will learn how to love the real you, boundaries and all.
People who only liked you because you were easy to use will move on. And that's not a loss. That's a filter.
Every no you give to others is a yes to yourself.
A yes to your time. A yes to your peace. A yes to your healing. Saying no isn't selfish. It's sacred. It's a declaration that your life belongs to you again. You don't need to fight to be understood. You don't need to prove anything.
You're allowed to disappoint people who expected you to abandon yourself.
And if that's all you take from this, let it be this. You don't need permission to protect your peace. At first, it feels wrong. It feels unnatural, like you're doing something bad, like you're hurting someone by putting yourself first.
You spent so long giving in, giving up, and giving too much that any act of self-protection feels like rebellion.
But it's not rebellion. It's recovery. Because what most people call being nice is often just fear in disguise. Fear of being left. Fear of being judged. Fear of not being enough if you're not constantly useful. So when you finally draw that invisible line, you expect applause. But what you often get is pushback. People test it. They push against it. They try to guilt you, charm you, or confuse you out of it. They say things like, "Don't you trust me? I thought we were close. You used to be more fun, but you know better now." You know that boundaries don't ruin relationships. They reveal them. Because someone who truly cares for you won't be angry that you said no. They'll be grateful you were honest. What happens when you start setting boundaries? You lose people. But you find yourself. You realize that some people liked the version of you who had no spine. The one who stayed quiet, said yes, smiled on cue. Not because they loved you, but because it made their life easier. So you mourn them quietly, but you don't chase them, because something deeper begins to grow in their place. Peace. You sleep better and feel lighter. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop explaining, defending, apologizing. You finally start asking, what do I need? What do I want? What do I deserve? And those questions scare you at first because you never had space to ask them. You were too busy earning your place in everyone else's life. But slowly, something shifts. You stop living like a guest in your own story. You become the host. You stop letting guilt guide your decisions. You choose yourself. Not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you finally realize you matter too. Your needs aren't a burden. Your boundaries aren't a wall.
They're a bridge between the version of you who survived and the version who now wants to thrive.
You will feel lonely, but not forever, because the moment you start honoring your truth, you start attracting others who do the same. People who don't take offense when you need space. People who celebrate your no as much as your yes.
People who see your boundaries as a sign of self-respect, not rejection.
That's what happens when you finally set boundaries. You stop bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You stop apologizing for being real. And you start living a life that actually feels like yours. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. You're always the reliable one, the helper, the fixer, the one who never says no. People admire you for it. They call you selfless. But deep down, something feels wrong, because what they see as kindness, is exhaustion. You say yes when you mean no. You stay quiet to keep the peace. You swallow your feelings even when they burn in your chest. You call it keeping the harmony, but really it's hiding your hurt. You smile while you suffer. You shrink so others can shine. You offer more than you have and then blame yourself for feeling drained. This is what people-pleasing really is. Not kindness, not generosity, but fear dressed up as virtue. Fear of being disliked, fear of conflict, fear of being called selfish for having needs of your own. And slowly, silently, it eats you alive, because every time you abandon yourself to make others comfortable, you send your soul the message. You don't matter. You become a ghost in your own life, present but not fully alive, always performing, never resting. And the worst part? Most people don't even notice. They're too used to you being everything for everyone. So when you finally speak up, set limits, or say no, They call you difficult because they never met the real you. They only knew the version of you who performed to keep their love. But here's the truth. Pleasing everyone is impossible, and trying to do it is the fastest way to lose yourself. You weren't born to be a peacekeeper. You weren't made to exist only for others. Yes, kindness matters. Yes, generosity is beautiful, but not when it's rooted in fear. Real kindness doesn't come from guilt. It comes from choice. It's when you give freely, not because you're afraid, but because you're full. So if you're tired, really deeply tired, of being liked at the cost of being whole, it's time to stop. Not because you're unkind, but because you finally realized you can't give from an empty heart. The people who truly love you won't need you to bend until you break. They'll want you to be real, to be honest, to be you. Even if that means saying no, even if it means being misunderstood. Because in the end, the cost of pleasing everyone is becoming no one at all. If you've made it this far, you've already done something most people never will. You paused, you listened, you looked inward. That's how healing begins. Not with grand declarations or overnight change, but with awareness, with honesty, with the quiet courage to ask, what if it could be different? Because it can. No matter how lost you feel, no matter how long you've carried the weight, no matter how many times you've started over, it's not too late. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not behind. You are human. And being human means being messy and growing anyway. Change doesn't happen all at once, but it does happen with one clear choice at a time. To rest instead of numb. To speak instead of hide. To forgive instead of punish. To try even when you're scared. And maybe most importantly, to treat yourself with the kindness you give to everyone else. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take the next step. Because every time you choose honesty over illusion, connection over performance, progress over perfection, you're writing a new story, and this time it's real. So take a deep breath. You're not alone in this, and you're already on your way.